He swallowed and stared at Richard. "So, do you know what it is, this labor army?" Richard nodded grimly. "Yes, I do. They raised one after the Civil War as well. Soldiers who'd returned home were sent to work in labor battalions. This time around, it's us Germans being sent off to a labor army." "What does it mean exactly?" It didn't sound too bad. Harry was more than willing to do his bit for the war effort. Richard snorted in disgust. "It's just another word for slave labor. No more, no less. Next!" a voice called from the office. Richard looked around. No one else seemed to be waiting. "Good luck, lad," he said, and tramped in. Harry's heart beat wildly as he stared at the door Richard had just disappeared through. His fear began to rise again, and he did everything he could to keep it at bay. Somehow he would manage, just as he'd survived everything else in his life so far. He wasn't the only one affected, after all. The door opened, and Richard came back out. "You're next," he said glumly. Harry nodded and went into the room. "Name?" "Harri Pfeiffer." To his relief, he succeeded in making his voice sound stronger than he felt inside. A sudden memory of his father flashed into his mind. Vater always managed to appear calm and self-assured, no matter how awful or unfair a situation might be, never letting an opponent know what fear he might be battling inside. "Pfeiffer, Pfeiffer," the woman repeated quietly to herself as she ran her finger down a long list of names. "Ah, there you are. Born on 14 July, 1925? "Yes." "Good." She ticked off his name. "Come back tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. That's when your train departs." "Where to?" Harry asked, clearing his throat. "Where am I being sent?" She took another look at the list. "You're being posted to the Chelyabinsk steelworks." Harry nodded, though this information meant nothing to him. He knew that the Russian town was somewhere in the southern Urals, close to the border with Kazakhstan, and probably no more than a few hundred miles away, but that was all. He turned to leave. "One more thing," the woman remembered. "You may take one rucksack with your personal belongings." How long will I be there?" Harry asked haltingly. The woman glanced up in surprise. "Well, as long as is necessary," she answered coolly. "Did you really think you would be allowed to stay at home while our great Soviet boys sacrificed their lives to the war?" Harry wanted to tell the woman that he too was a good Soviet boy, but he could sense it would do him no good. "See you tomorrow," he said politely, and left the office. There were more young men waiting in the corridor outside. Harry nodded a quick greeting to those he knew, and then dashed home. When he got there, he sank down onto a chair, and for a moment was swamped by fear. They had only lived here for a short time, but the little house had become a warm and friendly home. He felt safe here, despite everything that had happened to them, and he could feel the love that surrounded him everywhere. His eyes filled with bitter tears at the idea of leaving it all behind. Angrily, he wiped the salty drops away. He was no longer a child. He would meet his fate like a man, and not make things more difficult for Multa. It would be awful if she guessed how he was really feeling. If only Vater were here, he thought desperately, so at least he wouldn't have had to worry about Multa and Emma. The next moment he realized just how naive he was being. If his father were here, he would hardly be allowed to stay with his family. Richard had been taken too, hadn't he? Maybe that was why Vater hadn't joined them yet. Maybe he was no longer in Akmolensk and had already been transferred to a labor camp somewhere. Harry groaned and buried his face in his hands. How cruel and useless it all seemed, as though someone was intent on tearing families apart and then keeping them in the dark about what happened to them all. Was it all part of some great plan to break down their willpower and cohesion as a family unit and as a community? He took a deep breath and let his hands drop to his sides. There was no point in even thinking about it. Slowly, Harry got to his feet and picked up his rucksack.